to thank the grace of heaven, and the mercy of our predecessors, masters, to give me this opportunity to talk about the fundamentals of Buddha nature. I mean, because Buddha nature is very, it's very, you can say, because it's very intangible. It's hard to point. You can say it can be abstract, but if the key is, it's the essence, that awareness or essence, that it allows us to have a conscious mind. You can say that, all right? So that's why the 5 skandhas we talked about last week from the Heart Sutra, okay, right? So we tend to think of the mind, right? We call it the mind, or awareness, or whatever, or the conscious mind. I mean, really, it's kind of misleading. Conscious mind. It's really just the whole mind, conscious, subconscious, whatever. Okay, and we think that's real, or that's real, or or that's eternal, right? And that's what the ego it comes from. Okay, we have a notion of ego, right? The I, the me, the self, right? It's all based on the notion of the conscious mind, all right? Okay? And that's the 5th skandha, all right? So in Buddha's second, I think it was his second discourse after enlightenment, I think it's called the Anatma Laksana Sutta, okay? Literally it means the non-self, or the non-self characteristics discourse, okay? He talked about the 5 skandhas, and also the 12 nidanas, or what we talked about, what the Thai talked about last week, right, in the Heart Sutra, about the 12 chains of origination, right, or dependent origination. To shorten it, we say that's like the chain of causality. We call it. I mean, we call it chain of causality. All right, that's I don't know if you guys remember from last week. Okay, so you guys have to know that. All right, I mean, not know that, but know what it is. Okay, and in it, within that 12 links or whatever, they do talk about the conscious mind, right? The 5th skandha. And that's what the 5th skandha is, okay? All right, the 5th skandha. Okay? Where is it? Like the 12? Well, yeah, contact, feeling, craving, cleaning, becoming, right? It's cleaning, craving. Okay, so the first skandha is 4, right? You say name and form. Well, consciousness, volition and consciousness. You can say that's the 4th and 5th skandhas.
Yeah, I mean, this is not exact.
Yeah, it's not 1-to-1, right? It's not 1-to-1. But no, but it's buried in there. Yeah, it's buried in there. It's part of that. Because so the 5th, it's very important, because Buddha, in that Anatma Laksana Sutta, the second discourse that he gave after enlightenment to his 5 ascetic friends, right? Co-cultivators. He was saying that our notion of Atma, which is the self, or the ego, the I, is based on the 5 skandhas. Because we have a conscious mind, right? That's the 5th one. We have a conscious mind, and it's this conscious mind, conscious, subconscious. It's really both, but that allows us to say have a what? Volition, right? A will, intention. You can say intention, will, whatever, volition. Yeah, and that leads to the 4th skandha. Mental formations. It's really mental formations too. It's called mental formations. Okay. And then from there, once we have that volition, intention, we have what the notion of cleaning, cleaning. That means you dislike, right? Like and dislike, what do you call that? Desires and aversions, right? Cravings or / aversions.
The volition comes first. I mean, volition is at a lower level than the consciousness.
Yeah. No, conscious mind, just awareness.
Yeah.
Then from there,
higher level. I mean, the
cognition
is almost like a reaction. I mean,
intention,
it's
right?
almost, it's a low level. You don't have to
Right.
think about it.
Right.
Yeah,
No, yeah, it gives allows us to
more
have.
of the thinking. Yeah,
No, well, consciousness is higher level.
right.
You can say it, okay, and then from there, that's the fifth skandha. Then it goes down to the fourth skandha, which is that intention, that that you have an attachment. That's where attachments come about. You have likes and dislikes. In other words, you start saying,
Well, that drives the volition.
yeah. Well, you start saying, hey, I like this, I desire this, or I want to avoid this. So that's you can say attachment, aversion, or desires and aversion. Right? Aversion means you don't want. You can say it's dislike. It's part dislike, like and dislike. Okay, whatever. That's the volition part. You have cleaning. You started craving, cleaning, averting. Whatever. And then the third skandha, now they in most of the on the definition they call it perceptions. Well, the second one, volition, is more specific. Generally, we call it mental formations. It's called mental formations. That's how that's the actual. That's the direct translation from the Sanskrit term. Okay, that's what they call it, mental formations. All right, you started having. Yeah, you say thoughts, but you started having cleaning. You started having, say, hey, I want this, or I don't like this, or I intend to do this, I don't intend to do that. You get it? That type of stuff. We call it volition. You can say volition. Okay, that's mental formation. Then from there it leads to what we call perception. Some people translate it as conception, ideas. What that means, perceptions means discrimination. You say, you have a concept. Say, for example, we see an apple. We say, oh, that's a fruit. It's red or green. You get it? That's called perception. You can perceive. You can discriminate. You can differentiate. You get it? Okay? That's the third skandha. All right? So if you go up to the five skandhas, if you just page up, 5 skandhas. I don't know what the translation. Yeah, I call it. Yeah, see, perception should be really number 3, but that's okay. Or mental form. Number 3, and then number 4 has mental formations, right? Okay. And then number 5 should be also awareness too. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Yeah, get rid of perceptions. Move it to number 3, because you can perceive, you can differentiate. In other words, that's what it means. Perception means you can perceive light, dark. You get it? Not just sensation. Sensation is lower level. Okay, that's the next level. Okay, but I'm saying you can differentiate. That's what it means by perception. You get it? You can differentiate. Say, hey, this is hot, cold. You get it? White, black. Green, red, or it's an apple, or it's a fruit, or it's a banana, or whatever. You can start perceiving things. Okay, that's really the third level. Okay, all right. We say xiang. I mean, that's Chinese. Xiang. It's not a good. It's too. It's too generic. It's very generic. Okay, and then the fourth one, you can also say add in mental formations. Those are all mental formations. See, impulses, intention, volition, will. Those are all mental formations.
I think
Yeah.
that's the fifth one.
No. The fifth one is consciousness, cognition, mind, awareness. That's the highest level. So mental formation is no, because if you have awareness, then you have mental formations. You can start saying, hey, I intend to do this. I don't want to do this. If you have awareness. A plant doesn't have awareness, so it cannot have mental formations. Understand? You get it? Okay. Animals have awareness, so they can have mental formation. They can say, hey, I like this food. I don't like this food, right? Or I sense fear, or I sense, warm, cold, all that stuff. That's fourth and third, okay? They can intend. They have an intent. They can have a volition, an intention to say, hey, there's danger. I'm going to run away. You said? You get it? Okay, so that's... Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, that's more specific. It's awareness, too. It's awareness, okay? So that's why animals have a sense of awareness, too. People say, oh, they're not self-aware. Okay, that may be true in the sense that they look in a mirror, they can't recognize themselves. That's true. But they still can sense danger. They can sense a lot of, oh, this person's friendly, this person's not friendly, whatever. Okay, they can sense all that. So, and then also they have volition. They have a will. They can say, hey, I want to eat this animal, or I want to chase this thing, or I'm a dog, I want to chase squirrels, or whatever. Okay, or I'm a cat, I want to chase after a bird. They have intention. They have, all right. So they do have an awareness that there's a, there's a him. I mean, he, whatever. Okay. All right. There's an entity that wants. Okay. So it doesn't matter. So let's go to. Okay. So we talked about 3 perceptions, mean that you can differentiate. That means hey, I can differentiate. This is a solid. This is a liquid. You get it? All that. And then the lower level, it just means pure sensations. That just means you can. That's going down to the level of our sense organs. It's our sense organs that can sense, that can just perceive, sense hot, cold, all that stuff. It's the sense organs. You can say that's like the connection, the interface between us, we can say I, define the I, and the external world. You get it? So in other words, of a person who's blind, who's deaf, who's mute, who can't smell, who can't taste, who can lose sense of touch if they could do that, then they have no sensations, right? Because they can't sense what's the external world. You explain to a blind person color. They have no clue what color is because they can't sense it. Maybe black and white they can sense. Okay, maybe. It depends on what level, okay? Or no sound. You can say, hey, listen to this music versus a sound or whatever. I don't know, melody, harmony, whatever. They have no clue. It's impossible. Even though they have a mind, they have a mind. They can think about it. They have an awareness, but it's impossible to distinguish or differentiate. What is sound? What is music? What is melody? What is symphony? What is cacophony? I have no clue. It's impossible because I have no hearing, right? That's the interface. It's an organ. You can say it's an organ. Yeah, it's a tool. It's the interface. Okay, and then the last thing is the external world forms. Okay, that's the external world. All right. So from a Buddha's perspective, and you and Tai talked about it last week, all the 5 skandhas are false. People say, hey, how can that be? Right? It's false. What does that mean? Because it's all driven by what? Conditions. Just like I say, a person who's blind. So, to them, the conditions does not apply, right? Because they're blind. There's no sense organ, right? So the key is that there is, a sound wave in the air, so therefore we can hear sound, right? If it's empty space, I don't know, a vacuum, is there sound? By definition, there's no sound because it's a vacuum means that there's no molecules, right? No particles to convey the sound energy to our eardrums, okay, or whatever, all right, to our sense organs. So therefore, there's no sound. So the key is what Buddha was saying is that all forms, or all really the skandhas, are all false. When you say false, meaning that it's not eternal. That means it's never everlasting, right? It's because everything that we can sense, right? Forms, the 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 skandhas, it's all dependent on something, on some kind of cause or some condition. You get it? So that's called condition. So that's why even the 5th, the awareness, the mind, is considered false from Buddha's point of view. That's why he called it anatta, right? Non-self. That even what we think of the mind, exists. We say, yeah, mind exists. Look, I can see, I can hear you, I can all that. You get it? So he says even that is false. And the reason why is because there is something that's even more fundamental than that always exists, right? That always is, right? It's that thusness, suchness, we call it the essence, the Buddha nature. We kind of like shorten it to say Buddha nature, the Tathata Garba, right? Tathata Gata. Tathagata Garba. The womb. It literally translates what? The womb of suchness, or the matrix of the suchness, or oneness, or thusness. It's the Buddha nature. It's mentioned specifically in the Lankavatara Sutra, but I don't want to go technical because if you read the Lanka Tavatra, Lanka Sutra, it's very, how can I say? It's very technology. I mean, it can get very detailed. It can get confusing. It's like reading a psychology thesis journal because it talks about the different minds, different consciousness. And I'm going to try to get at it a little bit because they further differentiate the mind, okay, into from a different perspective. I mean, they use it different to try to explain what our conscious mind is composed of and what the Buddha mind or the Buddha nature mind, the Buddha nature is different. It's not it. Okay, it gives rise to that. So it's a different way of explaining. Okay, it can get very technical because they have three different type of minds. It's like reading, psychology. It's like, similar to like, what's that? Not Freudian, the other guy. What's his name? Skinner. No, it's a Skinner.
Oh, I'm talking about
The mind, the conscious mind. With Carl Jung. Skinner's part of that. Skinner came later, but and then Carl Jung called the ego, the id, and the super id.
that was Freud.
No, that's Freud. Yeah, that's Freud. But how they differentiate the mind into those different categories or whatever. So it's similar to that in the Lankavatara Sutra. They talk about the minds. The terms are what we call the discriminating mind, the defiled mind or conscious mind, and the chitta, which is the Buddha nature mind or whatever, the Buddha level mind. Okay, they distinguish it. Okay, so but you're gonna we don't need to go into that much detail because we're not a class in psychology or go too advanced into the Lankavatara Sutra. But just understand that Lankavatara Sutra deals a lot about this topic. Okay, so if you want to look up, what that's why a notion of consciousness, the mind, the fifth skandha. It'll go into more detail, but we don't need to. I mean, at our level, we don't need to go into that much detail. We just, I just want to give you a little bit of exposure to understand. Oh, the Lankavatara Sutra deals a lot about that. Okay, very detailed. Okay, very very detailed. All right, and it can get kind of confusing. So, but I want to introduce the, Lankavatara or the notion of you're going to hear the phrase a lot. The 6, 7, 8 consciousness a lot, and that came from the Lankavatara Sutra. All right, and in Zen Buddhism, when they use Lankavatara Sutra, they use the transformation of the 6, 7, 5, 8 consciousness. All right, so that's the and remember, just try to the reason why I talk about the skandhas is because I'm trying to connect the skandhas to those consciousnesses because those consciousnesses deal with the fifth skandha, and just understand all those skandhas are also false. So these these consciousnesses are also false. So it's not our Buddha nature. Get it? I mean that. Okay. I just want you to differentiate that. So a lot of people think, oh, my mind is Buddha nature. That's not accurate. All right. I mean, it depends on what kind of mind. When you say chitta, okay, maybe, maybe. But then you got to define what kind of mind is that. All right. So because our Buddha nature actually is indescribable, right? We talked about that last week, right? It's actually indescribable. It's not. You cannot define it in certain set of terms or words or description. It just is. Remember, that's why we introduced the notion of tathata, suchness, thusness, oneness. Remember, right? That essence and that being, that essence and the emptiness, right? That the emptiness and which is the essence and the being, right? That emptiness and the being, or whatever. I mean, it's actually very difficult to describe, and that's why Buddha tried to use these different concepts of consciousness, the mind, to kind of get people to understand what the Buddha nature is. Okay, what the tathata is, or the okay. So So, all right, so because there are some people who still, cling to the notion of the ego, right, the self, right, the mind. Oh, that's eternal, right? My mind is eternal. That's we talked about the fourfold negations, right? That's the third one, which means that both permanence, both being or both being, existence and non-existence. Remember, right? All right. So they say, there's a body, and then there's something that's formless or non-existent. We say non-existence, which is the mind. You get it? So we got to be careful. All right. So Buddha say that's wrong view too. All right. So and then the fourth one too says neither existence nor non-existence. So what they translated as that the schools of thought during Buddha's time. Some people say, the body's not real. They admit that, but then they said the mind is also not non-existent. So that's, which I guess if you look at it from one way, that means it exists. If it's not non-existent, but that's we can get into philosophical traps that way. I don't want to go into that, but basically, it has to do with the mind and body duality. Okay, that's the whole point. And there are different schools of thought or philosophies. You can say philosophies during Buddha's time that talk about these things, or that have these certain ideologies or beliefs. Okay, you can't call it ideology or beliefs. All right. So Buddha was trying to say that that's all wrong. That the Buddha nature, because he's trying to explain what Buddha nature is, or trying to get everybody to rise up to that level of, you can say, awareness of our Buddha nature. Okay, that's really what you can say awakening is. The awakening, right? To awaken to our Buddha nature. That's the key. Not to awaken to our consciousness. No, that because everybody's that. Everybody. Well, most of you. I don't say everybody, but most people have that, right? Except for maybe when they're sleeping, whatever. But then there's a subconscious. But that's okay. So he's not. He wants to tell people, or his message about his, you can say, his teaching, his supreme teaching, right? The Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi Dharma is to be aware, to realize that Buddha nature, that bodhicitta, whatever, bodhicitta, the Bodhi mind. That's in the list too there. Okay, the Bodhi mind, which is differentiated from the conscious mind. You understand? And the four conscious mind. Okay, so let's talk about what is the conscious mind. Let's even differentiate. We talk about the six consciousness, right? First, the five consciousness. The five consciousness is really it's the second skanda. You can say it's the 1 and 2, the first and second, because that's the five consciousness is really you can say the interaction between our six senses. Well, I call it the six, but it's the five senses, which is we know what the five senses are, right? Right. So that's eyesight, or the sense of sight, hearing, smelling, taste, and touch. Right. Okay. So it's those five sense organs interacting with the external world. Get it? Okay. So that's the five conscious, and then the interaction of that, right? It has to be interactive. Okay. It has to be interactive. The interaction with that drives or results in what we call consciousness of the senses. In other words, I see something, so I'm aware of that. Yeah, I'm aware of that. You get it? And so all those five skandhas come about. You get it? The form. I see a form, right? I see a shape or whatever, size, shape. And then I can sense it. I sense it. In this case, I sense it through the eyesight, okay, as opposed to touch it, okay, or taste it. And then I differentiate it. I can differentiate perceptions. Get it? I can say, hey, I can form an image. You can say, hey, this is small, big, whatever, black, white, red, blue, whatever. It doesn't matter, okay? And then you have ideas that says, hey, it looks pretty. It looks ugly. It looks normal. It doesn't look normal. It looks unique. You get it? Mental formations. And then or intentions. Oh, hey, it looks nice. I like it. Or I don't like it. You get it? or looks good, right? Looks appealing. Doesn't look appealing, right? Beauty, ugliness, all that, right? That volition, intention, impulse, all derived. That's the mental formula. And then you're finding your awareness of that. Okay, that's the conscious mind. You get it? So the 5 skandhas is part of those 5 consciousness. That's what I'm trying to get at. Okay, so you got think of it that way. Okay, but understand that, right? Buddha ultimately said that's all false too, because there are no right. So what happens if you lose your eyesight? Then it's hard to right. You can still think maybe, but it's hard to have those mental formations.
Oh, you do have those.
No, you could, but it's if you're born without sense of hearing, it's almost impossible to explain to them what hearing is, because they have a consciousness, but they lose that interface, so it's hard, very difficult. Okay, so the key is these 5 skandhas all create these, I don't know, these things, these images, formation, intentions, all that. Okay, that's the key. So the 5 consciousness is those eyesight, the hearing, same thing, right? The hearing, same idea. It could go through those 5 steps, the 5 heaps. They call it heap. Literally, it means heaps, but aggregates. Aggregates is probably a better. They aggregate into something. They create something. Okay, the point is all and same. Okay, so those 5. Now. That's called the 5th consciousness. We call it in the Lankavatara Sutra. They call it the 5th consciousness. Get it? So it had to do with it has to do with your mind too. But it's the main interference between the forms, the external world, and your 5 senses. That's called the 5 consciousness. Now, what kind of like consolidates them all together, right? Kind of like integrates them together, right? It integrates your both your sight, your hearing, your smell, your taste, all that stuff. It's your 6. We call it the 6 in the Lankavatara Sutra. It's called the 6th consciousness. All right, get it? So sometimes the 5 is called the root. The root because it means the sense organs. Okay, but okay. So it's the 6th consciousness. Now they call it the mana. No. What's the term? It's called the mind consciousness. Sorry, mind consciousness, which integrates it. It integrates those 5 sense organs into your mind. Just purely the mind. It's just purely the mind, which, have ideas, concepts, all that stuff. Mental formations. It integrates it together. It says, hey, I see this. I can touch it. I can feel it, or I can taste it. I can smell it. All that. It integrates it all together. You get it? Okay, and it develops even more higher level. Like that's how, people say, oh, how does creativity come about? Or how does inventions come about? It's because of our 6th consciousness. Get it? It's because we use our 5, right? We see, we touch, we say, hey, we whatever conditions. And then it's our 6 that integrates it, says, hey, I can do something better, or I can do, whatever, or I can create something.
That's the 7th.
No, 7th is the deeper. That's a little bit higher level. That's more philosophical stuff. Okay, so it just means that it drives, it's like the seed of creativity. We see something, we touch something, we can say, hey, I can, I taste this. Hey, I can make it better, or I can make it taste, look better, or taste better. All that stuff. That's what drives the 6, because it integrates it. Now, then we go to the next level. That's called the 6th consciousness. Okay. Then we go to the next level, which is the 7th, right? Which is what? It's called the mana. They call it mana consciousness. That's mona si, right? Mona si. Is it called mona si? Yeah, mo. Let's see, go to 7th. Let's go to 7th down here. Okay, how do I page down here? Where is it? Oh, okay, here we go. Mo na. It's called. It's translated as mo na, but it just means it's a direct translation of mana. What the heck? Let me go back. Escape, huh? Oh, hold on. I can't see that. It's too small here. Hold on 1 second. Hey, how do I go back? How do I go back? We added lines. I don't know why. You got to go back. Undo. Do undo. Just undo. Yeah. Okay. That's it. Go to 7. That's the mana consciousness. Okay, it's not the alaya, mana, mona. That's where we have what we call more advanced level, meaning stuff like, you can say, now mona or mana conscious, it's translated as defile mind. It just means corrupted. It just means that we start having attachments. You get it? Yeah, that's where the attachments come from. Okay, it's from our seventh. All right, because from your sixth, you integrate everything. You say, hey, I like this, or I don't like this. You get it? Attachment. So you have aversions, desires, and all that stuff. Okay, so we say that's, some people translate as subconsciousness. That's not really accurate. It doesn't have to be subconscious. Actually, the sixth and seventh are conscious and subconscious mind. You can integrate the two, because psychology looks at a different perspective. This is a different perspective. Okay, so just think of that. It's called the mana. Yeah, deep conscious. Yeah, analytical. In other words, it's deep-rooted. It's deep-seated. It's something. So that's why people say subconsciousness, because that's something that's like embedded, that you're not aware of, except like under through hypnosis, where you can bring it, or when you sleep, right? Because your conscious mind is covering it up, or it's hiding it, overriding it, or whatever. It just means something that's, yeah, you can say it's deeply ingrained. It's how can I say it? It's a very high level. It's just a very subtle. I can say it's very subtle. Maybe it's subtle. It's a better term. It's very subtle. Okay, that's where you have these attachments. Okay, all right. After the sixth consciousness. Okay, so that's the seven. Mana. That's what they call it. Defile mind. They call it the defile mind.
That interfaces with the eighth.
Well. Yeah. I'm gonna go to that later. But what I'm trying to say is that defile mind will, what I'm saying, is drives. I mean, that subtle defile mind. It's kind of subtle, because it's hard to, how can I say? It's hard to describe it, to grasp it. Okay. We say analytical. Actually, the six is really analytical too. It's not really that accurate.
Well, yeah. I think the seventh is the deep thought.
Yeah. Because we say, it's more high level, but
it's not your just normal thinking. It's
because six also you can think too.
Yeah,
six,
but this is more deep thinking.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not like the,
that's not okay. Yeah, you say it's more high level. Yeah, so you say creativity. Yeah. Okay, it's actually the seventh is where, that's why I like defile. It just means that's where you have attachments. You have like likes and dislikes. The sixth, not yet. The sixth, you can have it too, but it's not yet. Six just means that, hey, I can distinguish. I can say, hey, this is good, this is bad, like that type of thing. But then the seventh is like that you have this craving, clinging, that you cling to it. Okay, that's where it is. Okay, so it's very, it's like that's what people say, subconscious, whatever. Okay, all right. Okay, it leads to those creative things. Okay, desires or whatever. Okay, now the key is the seventh also comes from where? Or not comes from where? You can say it's an interface between we say it's between the sixth and the eighth. That's true, because there's an eighth. So what's the eighth consciousness? Wow. Now, some people define it as memory. They call it memory. That's partial. It's not 100% correct. Yeah, you can say it's memory at a very basic level, but the problem with memory is that people say, well, what happened when I die? What happened to that eighth consciousness? Oh, memory's gone, right? Because my mind is not working. Right? Because the memory is stored in my brain cell someplace, right? And those synapses, or whatever they call it, if you go into neuroscience. Actually, it exists. See, that's why. So it's called alaya, right? It's called alaya. Literally, it means storehouse. It's a warehouse. So we call it like it's a hard drive. In a computer, it's a hard drive. So even if you shut the computer off, right? We die, right? You shut the computer off. It's still stored in there, right? Somehow there's a physical zeros and ones embedded in that magnetic disk drive, right? Or whatever. Okay, not disk drive. Yeah, it could be disk drive, memory or whatever. So it's Okay, so yeah, so it does exist. So it's beyond. It's hard to describe. It's beyond our I. It's beyond the notion of I now, of my mind. So it's someplace. It's like the cloud. I don't know, whatever. Okay, so we say it's the. You can say it's a cloud. Cloud is like a what? Memory, right? It's a memory storage, right? It's a cloud, but it's hard to define what the cloud is. Okay, okay. So it's the place where all our notions, concepts, likes and dislikes, thoughts, basic level of thoughts, feeling, sensation, it's stored. Get it? It's there. So that's why. Now, see, I wanna use that example and then talk about why. But that memory, quote unquote, right, or warehouse, alaya, is still not our Buddha nature, and it's very important, very important, very important. Because the reason why it's not is because if we do not have any desires or motives, intentions, remember from our 7th and 6th consciousness, we will not have anything in the 8th. You get it? All right? Okay. So as long as we're definitely humans. As long as we're humans, we will definitely, what? Have things in the 8th. Understand? Because we have likes and dislikes, right? We have even memories. The 3 minds, right? The 3 minds. Did you talk about that last week? I think you did. I thought you did. No.
Past, present, future. Yeah.
Last week, right? Didn't you talk about it?
Past, present, future.
Yeah, past, present, and future. I think he talked about it. So if we have memories of it, even memories, scary, huh? Even memories. Oh, in the past, or we have expectations of the future. Oh, I plan to have this, to do this, to achieve this, whatever, to attain this, to get that, or to get rid of that, or whatever. All that. It's stored in your 8th. Understand? So that's even false. Get it? I mean, so that's not our Buddha nature. You can say a Buddha nature, it's indescribable, but within this Buddha nature, within it, I mean, it's hard to. We have this storehouse, so that if we have any thoughts, intentions, conceptions, ideas, attachments, desires, likes, dislikes, all that, it creates it in the 8th. Get it? And that's why that plants the seeds. Because you can say, well, that's the primary. You can say that's like a seed. You get it? The seed where it's stored. So as long as we have stuff in the 8th consciousness, it will drive what? Causality. Make sense?
It's also action. Things we do.
Well, action too. But yeah, action. So it'll drive. The point is it'll drive causality. Understand? So that's why. So the key is you have to have that. To empty our 8th consciousness too. Okay, now, here's the thing. That's why Buddha, that's why in our Buddha nature class, you're going to hear this general phrase, say, do not let a single thought arise. And what? Let go of all karmic affinities, right? Let go. That means, let go means, do not be attached or do not dwell on it and do not further the cycle, the karmic cycle, right? Like, example. I mean, very basic example. Everybody has that. Somebody cheated me or somebody, hurt me, whatever, emotionally, physically, doesn't matter, whatever, okay? So now, what's our, I'm not saying everybody, a lot of people, most people will probably say, hey, I want to get back or I want to, do something back in return, right? What we're doing is we're furthering, we're creating more. It becomes like what? Vicious cycle, right? Right? I mean, so that's what we mean by let go of all karmic affinities. It could be good or bad too, okay? In this case, I use a negative sense. But it could be good stuff too. Good. So the key is, as long as we have an intention or a yo wei, well, I call it yo, we say yo wei. That means you can say motivation, intention, right? It's actually duality, driven from subject-object duality, but that's another.
Driven from these concepts.
Yeah. Driven from, and as long as we have any, how can I say, thoughts, ideas, or deeds, actions driven by these, by the 6th and 7th consciousness, right? It'll create it'll create something in the eighth. It'll store something, okay, whatever, okay, a seed. I call it a seed, okay? And that just furthers our karmic cycle. Understand? That's what the Lankavatara Sutra is trying to explain, okay? It furthers that, okay? So that's why in all of Buddha's teachings, you can summarize it. We can say, let go, right, of all karmic affinity. The idea is you want to cut it off, not cut it off, but clear it. Clear all our karmic affinities out of our eighth consciousness. The net result is you'll clear everything from our eighth consciousness. Get it? So then that means if we don't further any, let's say, somebody, did something bad to you. So you just say, okay, because we understand, we are cultivators, we understand, there's a reason, right? There's a cause for that, right? So maybe previous life, who knows, or previous cycle, I did something to them, okay? Whatever, doesn't matter, okay? So now I'm going to just let it go, get it? When you do that, then you clear out that eighth consciousness. Make sense? So that then you don't further, right? If I say, I want to get back, right? That person stabbed me in the back or said something bad about me. Now I'm going to turn around and say something bad about that person. Then you're just furthering, right, the vicious cycle. So you're creating more stuff in your eighth. So it's right. So that just furthers the cycle, right? Get it? So the key is to like. That's what we say. Let go of all karmic affinities. All right. I mean the story of the monk and last week that story. That's one example of that. He is not. Right? Something he got bad mouth or his, he got what kind of wrong. He was wronged, right? He got wronged, right? The monk got wronged, right? By that woman, right? By that village girl, right? Who claimed that, he's the father of her child, unborn child, whatever, okay? So he got his reputation smeared, right? So the monk, being quote unquote awakened, understood that, hey, his reputation is being smeared, right? Right? He's being falsely accused, right? So technically, he would be right to say, hey, that's wrong, right? Or fight back, right? Or say, hey, go to court, whatever, litigate. That just furthers the cycle. You get it? The karmic cycle. Because now he's planting more seeds. You get it? So he wisely, so that's where the wisdom comes in, right? Prajna. He understood that, hey, I don't want to create more, right? So he just accepted, right? So that's called letting go, right? Just accept that, let it go, even though he knew that he was being false. It's not easy. I agree, it's not easy. But that's also part of going back to at the basic level. See, what you can view it from the wisdom view, or the eight consciousness view, and or from the noble eightfold path view. You know that? Remember what's number 7? 正清净. The four vigorous efforts, right, or endeavors, right, they call it vigorous, proper. One of them is what? To prevent unwholesome things from arising. You get it? Because if he, let's say, decide to fight back, or to to contest, right, that being wrongly accused, which is from a justice point of view, from a legal standpoint, that's correct, right? That's correct. You should fight back or stand for justice, right? Yeah. By doing that, you create more negative things. You get it? So he understood. So that's also part from a basic level, the eight noble eightfold paths. If you understand, this is too much detail. I'm sorry. No. It's too much detail. I want to get to the 4 wisdoms, but it has to associate with these 4 consciousness, the 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, but the key is we have to clear it out. All right, that's the key. Because as long as we have something good or bad, it'll drive. It plants the seeds of more karma. Get it? So the key is you have to clear. So the Buddha nature, actually, if we're Buddhas, if we're truly enlightened beings, Buddhas, that thing is clear. The 8th is clear. You know that? Its 8th is clean. Now people say, don't we can't have good ones? No, you can, but understand that then that will plant the seeds for more karma. Understand? Because Buddha we say, oh, Buddha, then that means Buddha has no mind. That's not true. They don't have a conscious mind like we have, where we distinguish good and bad. Get it? They have that oneness mind, okay, that bodhicitta, okay, that Buddha, we call it Buddha mind, Bodhi mind, we call it Buddha mind, which is, remember what we try to explain it as, it's what? Unperturbed or non-influenced by anything. It's non-dualistic. Remember we say it's non-dualistic, it's dimensionless, and it's timeless. That's that kind of mind. That's the Buddha nature. Okay, that's really that Buddha nature. And what's closest to it to describe it is really the four immeasurable minds that flows from there. Okay, but that's non-dualistic. We can define four immeasurable minds later, which is, I'll talk about that. It's hard to describe because we have to describe in certain phrases, and it sounds dualistic, right? It sounds dualistic, right? It sounds dualistic. The four immeasurable minds, right? It's in the list, but you can look it up later. That's remember that a class member last week asked about what's Buddha conscious mind? What's the Buddha conscience? Is that what she said? She said Buddha conscience? I call it, you can say, if you want to describe it, it's the four immeasurable minds. Okay, that's the Buddha conscious. We have to try to get to that level. So the key is you cannot have dualistic subject-object intentions, or or be perturbed, because everything else comes from drives. It's our 7th, 8th, 6th, 7th, 8th conscious mind, and we have to be very careful. All right. So in the Lankavatara Sutra, they use these terminology. They divide up our human mind or conscious, human, into these different consciousness. You get it? But they say that's wrong. I mean, so it's just like saying the 5 skandhas. What I'm trying to say is that when Buddha was talking about the 5 skandhas, he just that those are also false, right, or wrong. So you have to overcome it because that's what drives the causality, the 12 links, the 12. So in Lankavatara Sutra, it talks about transforming these conscious minds into what we call wisdoms, the prajna, which is our Buddha nature. That wisdom is from our Buddha nature, not from experience or learned wisdom. Okay, that's different. Okay, that's different type of wisdom. You got it? And then I don't have time to go into because Lecture Liu does talk about it, and very early. I'm surprised. He talks about those, transform the 6th consciousness into the divine observing wisdom or profound observing wisdom. The 4, I think it's called I have it on where would I have it? I have it in the four wisdoms. That's it, the 4 wisdom, called the 4 wisdoms of a Buddha. They call it the 4 wisdoms of a Buddha. So if you want to be a Buddha, you have to do this. I mean, now this is one explanation or one way to view it from using the conscious thoughts. You get remember I just explained the 5, 6, 7, 8 consciousness, right? There's really a 9th, and that's what really, the 9th consciousness is called the Amala. That's the Buddha mind, but it's indescribable. That's the problem, okay? But you don't have to talk about it. I have it in the list, all right? So the profound divine, profound divine observing wisdom, right? I mean, now they call it the 4 wisdoms of a Buddha. Do I have time? I don't have time. It's because the key is we have to understand what is Buddha wisdom. Okay, what is that wisdom? And now we can associate the wisdom, using that wisdom to counteract, to transform, to change our conscious minds. You get it? So if we can do that, then you're like getting closer to our Buddha nature, okay? Or you're applying using our Buddha nature. Understand? As opposed to our conscious thoughts to dictate our behavior. See, this gets very theoretical, unfortunately, but because it's hard for us to define, to say, oh, what is wisdom, right? What is wisdom? I mean, wisdom it's what? There's so many parameters or so many situations, different situations where we can use wisdom, right? So it's very hard to pinpoint. But in this, I'm going to try to I don't have time. It's too late, too much time. What the four wisdoms are and how they associate these type of wisdoms. So I was going to use examples. What's a profound divine observing wisdom? What is that? What is that? That's to change remember our six consciousness? We have a view, right? I mean, we have thoughts, right? We say we have thoughts, right? Conscious thoughts, right? The six, right? It's our conscious mind. We say conscious mind, right? We have differentiation, right? We can distinguish. Remember, we can integrate, right? All the five senses and say, hey, this is round. This is a square. This is white. This is black, right? All that. This is red color. This is green. This is blue. This is yellow. All that. We discriminate, right? We differentiate. Actually, the divine profound wisdom is to say all this is false. It's really to see. Lecture Lu doesn't go into detail, and it's part of the mindfulness or to the three Dharma seals to understand the three marks of existence. That everything is what? Impermanent, right? Everything has no self-nature. In other words, they don't have an essence to exist with no conditions. With no conditions. That's what we mean by no self-nature. You get it? So remember, that's why we talk about the five skandhas too. Because we say things exist because there are conditions that allows us to see, why this is this, this is this. You get it? So the profound divine observant to say, hey, even though I see this, right? I sense this, I could hear this, I could smell this, I could taste this, I could touch this. These are not ultimately eternal because it's conditions that exist that allows it to exist. You understand? So the divine or profound observing wisdom is to understand all things that we sense or even think is, because in this case, this has to deal with the what? The six consciousness, right? What we thought, right? What we sense, what we integrate from it's all impermanent, right? That's anicca, right? Anatta, no self, and dukkha. Dukkha means suffering, means it's imperfect. That it doesn't mean suffering in that case, okay? It just means that it's imperfect or not satisfactory. Understand? Okay, so that's called the divine observing wisdom. That's an example of that. So that's why you have to know the concept, what the three Dharma seals are, what the three marks of existence. If you understand that and you view things through that, from that perspective, with that understanding, that's an example of the divine observing or profound observing wisdom. Understand? Because you understood. You realize that these things are all not permanent or what? Have no self-nature. You get it? In other words, they exist due to conditions, right? Due to, whatever conditions. It doesn't matter, okay? Right? And that they're not perfect. Understand? That's called the divine or profound observing wisdom. Get it? You understand? If you can view things that way, that's the important thing. So you got to constantly be mindful. That's what leads to also for mindfulness. But that's, everything's related. There are a lot of terminologies. So you have to just bear that in mind, okay? And then that's what divine, profound, or profound, divine observing wisdom means. Get it? Makes sense, right? As opposed to use our six senses, which just says, I differentiate. I can see this. You know what I'm saying? Because then that way it's science level. It's just at a very physical level. Get it? But it's not true from the Buddha nature level. Understand? Because that will create later on. That's why I talk about what's that? Universal equal wisdom, right? Is it universal equal wisdom? And the perfection of conducts wisdom. Wow, what the heck is that? What kind of okay, so it's important to know what that type of wisdom is, okay? And I'll give you examples. Using the monk story, you can use examples, all right, so all right, I'm sorry, we don't have enough time because it's a lot of detail. I'm sorry, but you have to be aware of these things. So as we read the sutras, you have to bear these things in mind, okay? Because that's the only way to help us go beyond our conscious thoughts level, okay? Level of conscious thoughts, all right? Okay, I'm sorry, we have time. Sorry, we'll continue next time. All right, thank you.